Tutorial weather.
Hey, what's the crack, and welcome to or back to the channel. In today's episode, I want to share with you a concept and some techniques that I find very helpful when attempting to light a scene that needs to look and feel dark. In today's example, as you can see, I've gone very dark to show you just how far you can push these techniques, but this is clearly too dark for YouTube and YouTube's compression. So I think it's really important that you watch this video on a good sized display. Wow, I struggle to say that. And also make sure that you watch it in 4K resolution. Also, for those of you who are really concerned about image quality and integrity, I have a link in the description where you can download a DNX HRHQX copy of the final setup so that you can assess the image quality under better conditions. We are going to do two setups today. One where we leave our foreground in silhouette for a more unrevealed and silhouetted look. And in a second version where we bring in some light onto that foreground to give a less mysterious and a more revealed look. To do this, we're going to cover 4 techniques that all serve a main concept, and that concept is to preserve shadows. And by preserve shadows, I mean don't just flood your entire scene with light and eliminate every shadow from every corner and every pocket of the scene. The first thing that I did was to hang a big piece of black material over the window in the office space here. And this does 2 things for me. It, 1, blocks out any ambient daylight from coming in and illuminating our scene. And 2, it actually creates negative fill in front of our subject in the foreground, which will better help with creating a silhouette later on. Now, ideally, I would have created an entire cove of negative fill in the corner of that room, but of course, I'm just working with what I have available to me. Now let's turn off the house lights and look at our base canvas, including these 2 computer monitors. It's really important to remember that just because things aren't a traditional lighting fixture or lamp doesn't mean they're not sources of light. They are your responsibility. So any color and luminance adjustments that need to be done to make them work in the scene need to be done by you as well. Now, these 2 sources of light are the first implementation of the first 2 techniques that I wanted to cover today. The first technique is create pockets of light. By creating small pockets of light, you will leave small pockets of shadow. And the second technique is to light the background and not the foreground in order to achieve silhouette. Silhouette is basically just another way of saying shadow. So by lighting for silhouette, we are lighting to preserve shadow. Continuing with these 2 techniques, next I switched on this practical lamp, and this is going to be quite specific to me, but the lamp, 1, has a really weird spread of light and casts weird shadows, and also the color from this lamp is breaking the color palette that I was going for. So what I did was kept it really dim, and I decided to augment that lamp using an aperture MC. Now that we have some nice pockets of light, for me personally, the shadows are feeling a bit too deep and a bit too plentiful. So I decided to bring in a really subtle, controlled amount of fill. To do this, I rigged my Falcon Eyes panel light to be an overhead light. And with the way I angled it, I got it to do 2 things for me in the scene. The first was it illuminated that background a little bit more, specifically the desk, and that further augments that desk lamp. It makes it look like it's lighting that background more than it actually is. And the second thing is by tilting that light a little bit towards the foreground, I'm actually getting a little bit of light wrap onto our subject in the foreground. Now to me, this feels more dimensional. It makes there be a bit more depth to the scene, and it feels less stylized. It feels more organic, but that's a preference thing. You could easily have tilted it back off that subject and maintain that perfect clean silhouette if that's the look you were going for. If I wanted to leave my subject in silhouette for that mysterious unrevealed look, this is where I would personally leave this scene. Now let's quickly take a look at lighting the foreground to reveal our subject. All I've done here was added a small LED panel to add a key light to the subject, but it's the details of the key light that are important here and that cover our next two concepts. Those two concepts are, one, using a far side key rather than a near side key, and two, ensuring that we get a catch light in our subject's eye from this key light. So first, let's talk about the far side key. If you have a light towards one side of the subject, of course, one side is going to be bright and one side is going to be dark. But it's the position of the camera and the subject's face relative to the camera is where we begin to encounter problems. Basically, if I'd gone for a near side key, there would indeed be a shadowy side to the face, but because it's turned away from the camera, we wouldn't really see it, and the face would have more lit side than shadow side, which I didn't feel would best serve this scene. So by opting for a far side key, we get a lit side of the face, but we get more shadow side, which works towards that overarching concept again of preserving shadows. The next technique I made sure that I used here was to ensure that I got a catch light in our subject's eye. To me, going really dim with a key light, the secret is to ensure that you have a catch light. I could go brighter or darker with this key light, but if I had clocked it further around or further up on our subject and lost that key light, there would be a huge difference in our ability to connect with that subject and to glean information from their eyes. So for me, when I'm going this dim with the key light, a catch light is an absolute must. Before we sign off, I just want to reiterate that this is just one specific implementation of these techniques, and I've obviously gone on the very dark end of that spectrum. These are not hard and fast rules that you have to adhere to. The two most important things are that one, of course, you have fun with everything, and two, that you are guided by the story that you are trying to tell, and therefore that the tone that you achieve with your lighting best serves that story. Anyway, as always, I do hope that you found this video helpful, and if you did, please do consider giving the video a thumbs up, as well as subscribing to the channel and hitting the notification bell. Have a good one, and I hope to see you in the next video.